Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It's been quite a while since I made a video. If you're new, you might get more than you bargained for in this video, because though it's about a book that saved my vacation, it's more about maybe some words of wisdom that I've gleaned from the month and a half that I've been vacationing, if you can call this a vacation. So this video is about how a book saved my vacation. And it's not exactly a book that saved my vacation, but maybe I'm going to talk about how a good attitude maybe saved my vacation. So I went on a trip, as some of you know, and I planned this trip for a really long time because I live in Hawaii and going anywhere is pretty much a hassle. But I learned some things and I wanted to share them with you, as well as talk about a book, because this is a book channel. And I wrote down some notes because it's been a while, and I wanted to really be able to express the experience that I went through and what I learned from it. Okay. So, in some ways, my vacation was a disaster. Let me tell you what went wrong. What didn't go wrong? Everything went wrong that could possibly went wrong. So I read an article online by a website called Gnometrotting. What to do when a vacation is a disaster. I'm just going to read you a little bit. Through no fault of your own, a trip can quickly become a disaster. You miss your flight, you lose your luggage, you get sick, you fight with whoever you're traveling with, you get mugged or scammed or lose your passport. It's actually more likely that your trip won't go as planned than it is that it will. Well, most of those things happened on this vacation. I didn't get mugged, but I lost my phone and it was stolen. I missed my flight, and that really started a whole snowball of events that could have really ruined my vacation, and kind of did. So I didn't lose my luggage, I have to say that. I did get sick. I got COVID. I didn't really fight with my partner. So I didn't lose my passport, but like I said, I lost my phone. And it wasn't sort of my fault. I didn't know I had COVID at the time, and I was walking around in a heat wave. Now, let me start by saying that the beginning of my trip really went well. I got to Minnesota from Hawaii, and I got to see my daughter, my son, my granddaughter. I went to a spa, and if you look, I'm going to have the videos that I filmed before the big part of the trip started down below. So if you want to watch them, you can. So you can see that what I'm going to talk about later is how you can keep the bad stuff from making the whole trip horrible. And that's sort of a mental thing. Okay, so the first thing that happened wrong was that when I got to Minnesota, there was a terrific heat wave. It was like 103 degrees. And my daughter does not have air conditioning for reasons that I will not talk about right now, but it was almost unbearable. And in fact, one day out of the 3 days that it was over 103, I had to actually go to the pool and practically immerse myself so I could survive that. So one funny thing happened. When I got to the airport, I thought I was looking good. I had exercised, got ready for the trip, because I do have mobility issues. I have anxiety issues. So my son-in-law says to me, "Wow, you look good. You're doing well. You're walking well. Everything is going well." Well, until Da 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 da. Okay, so what happened after that? Okay, one little thing can snowball. Now, I think I told you all that my son works for an airline, so I can travel for free. But boy, that free trip cost me more than I can tell you. So I would say that I learned a lot on this vacation, and that no matter how much you plan for a vacation or for anything, it can go wrong. And sometimes the more you plan, I mean, there's a saying that my mother used to say, man makes plans and God laughs. And well, that's certainly true in this case. So what happened was, and I didn't know anything about this, my son tells me, you got 60 seats on this plane to Paris. You're going to get on. And me and my partner had a glass of champagne at the airport, and this is going good. Well, I didn't get on the plane, even with 60 seats. And I'll tell you why. Because they had a load problem. And I didn't know what that was. But what that means is that the luggage is basically more important than the passengers, especially the ones that are rev-free, no revenue. And that means me, because my son works for an airline, so they're not getting revenue out of me, so I get kicked out first. And a few other people got kicked out. So I was not prepared for that, because I had to be in Paris by the next day, because I had an Airbnb that was waiting for me. So my son got me to Amsterdam, and this is when everything went wrong. So I'm on the plane to Amsterdam. A woman is coughing and turning around and coughing in my face. I do not know why she did that. And the funny part is I was in first class, because that was when there was a lot of weather stuff happening. And what happened was a whole plane was delayed out of Minneapolis. So I got pushed up to first class. It started going wrong right after that. They actually forgot to give me my meal. I was forgotten. I didn't care about that. And it was really comfortable. But this woman kept on turning around, and even though it's a cubicle, she was coughing in my face. And I put on my mask, should have bought a shield. Lesson learned on that. So I got to Amsterdam, and that's when things went really wrong, because I couldn't get a train, because I had a train that in another time, and I couldn't get a train to go to Paris. So we had to sleep. So I started getting panicky, and we're going in the airport where I could have got COVID. We went around the airport. The train station in Amsterdam is attached to the airport. So we were roaming around deciding what to do. I'm tired from the flight. And we finally decided to stay overnight in Amsterdam and take the train to Paris the next day. And that went well, sort of, except that before I made that decision, we're walking around the train station with hundreds of people walking around. And I started having a panic attack when they told me they couldn't put me on a train. And we finally found a hotel. So you see, I'm spending more money than the trip was worth already. And we got to Paris. Okay, we got to Paris. Everything was fine, except there was another heat wave. It was so hot. And the first few days of the Paris trip went really well. And I was enjoying myself. I wasn't sick. And then COVID hit. And I had never had COVID before. And all I can tell you, it was hell. And it was a heat wave without air conditioning again. So I'm stuck in the Paris apartment for 4 days. Could not go to the best part of the trip that I was looking forward to, really, which was Bruges, Belgium. Did not go, could not go. I was contagious. And so I was very lucky that the lady that I was staying with in the Airbnb let me stay for the 4 days that I was going to be in Bruges. so I could recover. And I thought I would have to go home because I was that sick. I mean, I had never been, COVID is different than a flu, at least the in my experience that I had. Anyway, I got well pretty fast, but after a few days of hell, and was able to enjoy another few days. Was very weak, but was able to enjoy another few days of Paris. And then I went to Holland, where though I was my mobility was not good because I had been in bed in Paris, and but I really enjoyed my time in Harlem, where we spent the most of our trip. And then I went back to Minnesota, where my plane, I got on, but there was something wrong with the plane, so we're stuck for another 6 hours before I can get back to Hawaii. And it was just, it was almost a joke. So what did I learn and what book did I read? If you're still here with me, which I hope you are, because the good part is coming. Because I did learn a lot. And of course, like I told you, I learned that no matter how much you plan, things are going to go wrong. And I go back to the blog that I read, and it says that what you shouldn't do, okay? It says, don't freak out. I freaked out. I really did. I had a couple of panic attacks where I was going, this can't be happening to me. I planned so well. But, after the freak out, I was able, okay, what can I do to make this better? And I made some good decisions that saved our trip. Then it says, don't focus on the things that went wrong. If you focus on the things that go wrong on a trip, it can ruin your whole attitude and ruin your memories of the trip. And that's true. And so focus on the things that go right and go with the flow. Now, if anybody knows me very well, they know I don't go with the flow very well. But when you have to do something, you do it. So, okay, I went with the flow when I had to. So it says, sometimes the best thing about travel is discovering the things you didn't know existed. And if you didn't get to do something, maybe it's for the best. Well, I still think it wasn't for the best that I didn't get to Bruges. But I still have that on my radar, that I really want to go there. So it's something to look forward to. And another thing that I wanted to say was what went right. Okay, so what do you do that's right? The first thing you do that's right is you laugh about it, because some things go so wrong that it's funny. It's really funny. Here I am, everything is planned, and I'm walking around the Amsterdam airport and saying, I hate this airport. I really hate it. And then we went down to make it worse, we went out to the train station, which is attached to Schiphol Airport, and we brought the cart with us with all our luggage. Do not bring a lot of luggage to anywhere you go. That's all I can say. That is my one tip for traveling, because it kind of really made everything worse. And then a lady, not a lady, well, she was a lady, but she worked at the airport, and she started screaming at us in Dutch. And she thought we spoke Dutch first. And then she screamed at us in English and told us, you're not allowed to bring this cart. This is an airport cart. This is a train station. And I'm practically delirious at this point from that traveling. And so, a lot of things went wrong, but you have to laugh, And afterwards, we laughed about being yelled at. Our first interaction with a Dutch person was being yelled at. But, it didn't end that way. That's the wonderful part. I met so many wonderful people on this trip. And that's what I want to talk about. The kindness of strangers. that I love the Netherlands, that I want to go back. The book I never would have read if it wasn't for getting COVID and being stuck in Paris. Yeah, so now I want to talk about the good stuff. Okay, I want to talk about something that I learned. And what I learned is, and I didn't make this up, but it's really true. So Benjamin Disraeli, former Prime Minister of Great Britain, said, "Action may not always bring happiness, but there is no happiness without action." And a French author, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and my friends will tell me if I'm saying that wrong, said, "The time for action is now. It's never too late to do something." The reason I'm saying this is because all my family and people who know what happened to me on this trip say, "You never should have gone on this trip. This was the worst thing that ever happened to you. Look at you. You lost some weight. You look terrible. You got sick. You never went to this place or that place." But it's not true, because the good things that happened on this trip and the things that I learned, and I'll tell you one thing I learned. Okay, so in Paris, I learned that I went to look for one of these little hair ties, and nobody understood what I was trying to say. And then they said, "I found out that this is called a shoo-shoo." Isn't that cute? So I learned a new word, shoo-shoo. I had to take Uber because like I said, my mobility, and I was getting sick and then getting over being sick. So we took a lot of Uber, even though I had done a lot of exercise for this trip. And every single Uber driver in Paris was fighting with every other Uber driver. That was really funny. So we enjoyed that. Then we went to go to a restaurant that was on my list, my planned list. And what happened? The only way you can do this was go in person and ask for a reservation. I went, they didn't have anything. I asked them, "Do you know where, a restaurant around here?" And the guy says, "Well, I don't really go to restaurants around here." He was a French guy that worked in the restaurant that we wanted to go to. But next door is the oldest restaurant in Paris. It was, it's called Le Procope. Le Procope, I think it's called. And we had just a wonderful time there. It was like old Paris. The waiter spoke to us only in French. No matter who you were, how much French you spoke, he was going to talk to you in French. And if you spoke in English, he'll answer you in English, but he'll keep on speaking French. And I loved that. I just loved it. And not to mention the food was really out of this world, and the place looked like a museum. It had like floors to it. So that's an example of how something can go wrong and then something can go right. Then when we went to Harlem, I had never been there before. I had always gone to Amsterdam. And Harlem has my heart. I love the place. I love the people. I was shown so much kindness, so much interactions with just everyday people. Not to mention it's a gorgeous place. But it made everything worthwhile. It made my whole trip worthwhile. So now to the book that saved my vacation. So here I am in Paris. I have 103 fever. I'm trying to call a doctor. I have insurance, by the way. But every doctor says, "Oh, it's COVID. You'll be fine. As long as you're breathing." Yes, I was breathing. So you'll be fine. So what to do? Most of the time I was sleeping, resting. But the person that I stayed with in the Airbnb had a wonderful collection of books. In fact, everyone I stayed with was a book lover. Every Airbnb host that I stayed with was a book lover. But all her books were in French, so that wasn't going to help me. Even though I read a little bit of French, no. But she did have one book in English. I couldn't figure it out until I read it, and that's Of Human Bondage. And it's by Somerset Maugham. And I truly think this is going to be one of my favorite books of the year. And it's a, you know, I don't like big books, if you know me. And this is almost 700 pages. But every time I woke up, I would go back to this book and I would say, this book is fantastic. This book is a book that I never would have read if it wasn't in this. Of course, this is not the book that I got this book out of the library. And the book that she had was, had a introduction by the author. And the introduction by the author was what made me read it. And actually, Somerset Maugham was born in Paris, or born in France. I'm not sure if he was born in Paris or not. But he was a French citizen because his father was in the, and I don't know what it's called, I think, so he's the youngest son of wealthy English parents. And I think that he was born because his father was in the, I had to look it up. So it says that he was born in France in 1874. He was the fourth son of Robert Osmond Maugham and Edith Mary Snell Maugham, and he was born within the grounds of the British Embassy in Paris because of the impending passage of a French law giving every child born on French soil French citizenship. And what he said about this book in his introduction was that it was as close to an autobiography as he can say it is. That if these things didn't happen to him, it happened to other people. So you can say it would be called autofiction today. So what is it about? So of human, I didn't know what of human bondage meant, but it's from Spinoza's Ethics of Human Bondage or the Strength of the Emotions. And it says here it's about being a slave to desire because he was in love with this woman, and it was more of a sexual obsession, though I didn't really see that exactly in the book. But what I loved about it, so it's a story of Philip, who he goes through, he has a disability, a club foot. Now, I hope this is not a spoiler. I don't think it is. Somerset Maugham didn't have a club foot, but he did have a stammer. So he kind of changed things around like people do in autofiction. But it's remarkably like his own life. And I just love that. I love memoirs. I love autobiographies. I wrote my own memoirs, so you can see that I saw that it was his own life. I really could feel that he went through these things that he's talking about. And I have to say that I haven't finished the book yet. There's only a few little pages that I haven't read. But he goes through relationships, and he travels to France, and in the book, I mean, and he travels to Germany in this book. And it's very interesting. He meets all kinds of people, and they're real because they are real. I just love this book. And if it wasn't for having COVID in a heat wave, in a Paris apartment on the 6th floor, I never would have read this book. So that's the good things that come out of every bad thing. There's always a good thing that comes out of it. Okay, so what else am I going to say? Harry Truman said, imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. I really believe that, because everything we do in life is imperfect. My whole life is a study of imperfection, but I wouldn't have ended up in Hawaii if bad things hadn't happened to me in New York at that moment in time. And so I could have just stayed in New York when bad things happened to me, but I decided I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to live in a different place. And I moved to Hawaii, and a lot of good things happened. I had 2 more children. I have a house that I probably, if I moved to Hawaii maybe even 10 years, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do. And I live in a beautiful place. And I want to go on more adventures. I'm not, this trip, as imperfect as it was, hasn't put me off of adventure and life, even at 73. And I found out that I still have more life in me. Maybe I have some more ways of making better decisions. I don't know if, you know, that song by Alanis Morissette, You Live, You Learn. Maybe you don't learn perfectly, but you learn something. And that something will help you keep on going on to a better life. Okay, so the good parts beside reading, and this really saved me. It saved my trip because it put me in a different world, and I got out of that high rise in Paris and in the heat wave, and I was in his life. And that was nice. It made me think, okay, you're not ruining your vacation because you got COVID and you're sleeping most of the day for 3 or 4 days. You're reading a wonderful book, and books have always saved me. So I'm not surprised that this book saved my vacation. I want to say a lot more, but I'm not going to do that to you. But I did go to Shakespeare and Company, and I have a haul coming up. And I did a lot of wonderful things in the days that I was in Paris. And I'm not off of vacations. I'm not off of traveling and having new adventures. I want to keep on having new adventures. So I hope you enjoyed this chatty video of a book that saved my vacation and a good attitude that saved my vacation. Please comment down below and say hi. If you got anything out of this ramble of mine. I missed you all. Hi, I'm Marilyn Maya, and I have a YouTube channel, so please join me. And until we meet the next time, aloha.